The students I was working with are international fashion promotion students at level 5. We wanted to work with both industry partners as well as university partners. So we chose 3 live briefs for the students to be working with, and they had to choose one. The 3 briefs were working with Metropolitan, working with a company called Fashion Capital, who are a factory down in London, and the other one was with BIFT, which is Beijing International Fashion Technology University in Beijing. I'm just going to be concentrating just on one of the briefs, which is the BIFT brief. The rationale behind the project was to encompass globalisation for our Manchester students. The way we went about this, working with BIFT, the university in Beijing, was we set them a project, and that project consisted of 3 elements. What we did, first of all, was we asked the UK students, so our Manchester students, to choose and do research on 3 UK retail brands that were not at present within the Chinese market. Then the Beijing students had to choose 3 retail brands that weren't in the UK market. Once they'd chosen those brands, they then had to put a brief overview of the brands together. And then in addition to that, also tell their Beijing counterparts, or Beijing tell their UK counterparts, who their consumers were that were appropriate for those brands. So that was the first element of what they had to do. Then the project was about launching a fashion brand into the UK, and the Beijing students did the same but with the UK brand. So they were launching a UK brand into the Chinese market. They needed to put together a report which was a 2,500 word for each of the students that took part within the group. And then in addition to that, they then had to summarise their findings from the report into a presentation, of which was videoed and then sent over to Beijing, who then analysed and gave the students some feedback, as I did the same with the Beijing students' presentations. In addition to that, what we did was we did a prize at the end of the actual project, which was we chose the best team within the 6 groups that were there, and each of the students, we printed the actual work that they'd done. So they got Beijing students' work and also their work into a beautiful glossy brochure that they can then take with them for job interviews, so they can use it as part of their portfolio. Now, with working with Beijing, of course, the Chinese students spoke Mandarin, and therefore there was obviously a language barrier. How we overcome this was we had interpreters available, which were my colleagues at Manchester Metropolitan University. So we had our colleagues who were themselves from China, and they very kindly agreed to be an interpreter if need be. So our students gathered the information, their research, and exchanged that information by either email or WeChat. And WeChat is the Chinese equivalent, really, of our Facebook. But because Chinese students aren't able to access Facebook, the WeChat was the best form of communication between the 2 sets of students.